Hello everyone, today I thought we would take a look at this brand new gem created by Nejda Kadir again, a frequent contributor to the Rails community. And this one covers a pretty interesting topic. So this is a gem that adds the ability to follow and unfollow people. But why I think this is such an interesting gem is because you can tweak it just a little bit and change the follower functionality into a friend and unfriend system as well. So I'm going to be covering it in this video and sort of showing you how to do both of the systems. It shouldn't take too long, but I will be copying and pasting code this time so you don't have to sit here and watch me type the boring code over and over again, because a lot of it's going to be very similar. But to sort of give you a bit of a demo, you have a profile page here and you have your home page. Your home page just shows you who's following you and who you're following, or you could change this to who you're friends with. And if I click this and I do the unfollow, it will then also unfollow that person for the other user. So this is like if it were configured to be like a friends list type of thing, right? And then you can pretty much uncomment 2 lines of code or comment 2 lines of code, and it'll go to a follower request system where if you follow someone, you'll only get the notification that that person has sent you a pending follow request, and if you accept it, they'll then be allowed to follow you, but you won't be following them. And you can tweak these as you need to. So we're just going to go through this real quick because it really won't take too long. I'm going to go ahead and stop my server here, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new Rails project. So I'll see you as soon as that's done. All right, we now have our new Rails project. So I'm going to go ahead and CD into that project. I'm going to bump up the font size. And then we're going to go through this pretty quickly. So a couple things we need to do. First, we need to do a bundle add to add the followability gem, which let me just go grab the name of this because I keep typoing this. So let me get rid of this and we'll just do a bundle add followability. Then we'll need to do a installation for it. So we'll just say Rails G follow. Let me just paste it again before I typo it. And then we'll do an install for that. That'll create our migrations. Next, let's do a bundle add for Devise because we're going to be using Devise users for this. And then we can do the basic Devise setup, Rails G Devise :install. And then we'll have to do the Rails G Devise user command. And then we can do a couple of controllers. So say Rails G controller, pages home. So we have a home page to work with. And then we'll do a Rails G controller profile, which will have a show action associated with it. And there we go. Now that all that's done, we have our controllers. We have every of our models. We can do I don't even know what I just said. We can do a Rails DB :migrate command. Now for our users, real quick, I'm going to go ahead and open this up in VS Code. And we're going to create a quick little seed file so that we don't have to create multiple user accounts. So we're going to come into config, not config, we're going to come into DB and our seeds file. I'm going to bump up the font size a bit. I'm going to hit Control B to hide the side panel. And then I'm going to bump it up one more. And then inside of here, we're going to do what we normally do. We're going to grab the Devise user model. We're going to call create exclaim. We'll pass in an email, a password, and a password confirmation. And then we'll do the same thing for a second user. In this case, my second user is just going to be named john@doe.com with another password of password. So this will let us do a Rails DB seed, Rails DB :seed command, which will create those users for us. And then we can do a Rails S to start our server. Now that that's done, let's go ahead and let's add the followability to our users. I'll close the seed file. We'll come into app, models, and user.rb. And down here, we'll just say followability. That gives you all of the functionality you'll need for this. And yeah, from there, you can pretty much just move on with your life. Now, the other thing we should probably do is come into our config and our routes.rb because we need to create quite a few routes here. These are all this is going to give you a lot of functionality out of the box where you have methods you can call. But of course, if you're trying to create links on a page, you need to go to a controller action where you can call this logic. You can't just create like a link to where the link is just calling this method. That's not going to work. So what we'll have to do is create a, well, I guess we'll start with the home page. We'll change the root on this page's home, or the get to a root and the slash to a hash, and then we'll handle all of the profiles. So for the show page, the first thing we want to do is change this from profile slash show to a profile slash colon ID so that we can go to like slash profile slash 1 or slash profile slash 2 to see an individual user. We'll set that to be to the profile show, and then we'll say it's as profile. Now, in following with the same convention, we're going to have a bunch of other profile slash IDs, but these are all going to be post commands because we're going to be modifying stuff in our database. So we're going to say these are posts. So we'll do this, and it'll be to something, and then it'll be as something. So we'll just follow this convention, and we'll start by creating our profile follow. So it'll look just like this. It's going to be profile slash ID slash follow to profile follow as follow. And now we're going to have the same exact action for an unfollow. It's just going to change what the words are. It's going to be slash unfollow, unfollow action, and unfollow as the as. And then because we're going to be sending requests, we need the ability to not just follow or unfollow a user. We need the ability to accept or decline a follow or accept or decline a follow request. Sorry, it's like really late or early in the morning, I guess. So we're going to do profile slash accept. We're going to do slash decline. And then there is one other case, which is I've sent you a follow request. Then I see that you are, I don't know, posting memes that make fun of my favorite Naruto character. So I don't want to follow or be friends with you anymore. So I want a cancel option so that I can cancel my follow request. And that is effectively it for all of our actions. I know it seems like a lot, but you do have to consider that like you have the ability to send friend requests, receive them, decline them, accept them, or cancel your pending friend requests. And for all of these things, if you just want to make it so you follow someone with one click, all you do is you copy the logic for like accepting the follow request into wherever you are creating the follow request. So you make the follow request and you accept it in the same action, and boom, you now have a one-click follow button. It's just backed up by some additional data. So that takes care of all of our routes. Let's come into our views and our pages and our home page, and real quick, we'll just set this up. So the first thing we want to do, of course, is create a basic Devise setup where we can check if we're logged in or not. To do that, we'll just go ahead and we'll say if we are the current user, we'll say we're logged in as that user, and we'll do a link to a logout method. And then down here, we'll say else and link to login. Now, what we want to do aside from that is we want to list the current follow requests we have or friend requests. But to do that, we probably want to be able to create them. So we'll come into our show page real quick. And in our show page, we're going to start by changing the H1 to just show the current user's email, the user's email of that profile. And then what we'll do is we'll just do a check to see if we are following a user. So in here, it will say if we are following a @user, which is going to be the user we set in our controller when we visit here, then we want to do a button to unfollow the user. So say button to unfollow, which is going to be our unfollow path. The following question mark comes from our followability gem. And then the unfollow path is something we'll create in our controller. That also corresponds to the route we just created, which is this one right here, which is why it's set to as unfollow, so that it just becomes unfollow path. And that same convention is going to follow through with the rest of these, no pun intended. Now, the else here is just going to be a button where if we're not following them already, we should have the ability to follow them. But of course, as we talked about, what happens if you've already sent a friend request and you want to cancel it? In that case, we have an else if right here that just says if the current user sent a follow request to @user, then create a button to cancel the follow request, which takes us to that final cancel path that we saw in our routes right here. So we'll go ahead and we'll save that. Then we'll come into our controller. So it's going to be our controllers and our profile controller. And then in here, we need to do all of our fancy logic. First things first, let's do a before action. to set user, and this will actually run for all of these methods. We don't actually need to put anything inside of our show method, but we do need to create that set user method at the bottom. So we'll say private, and then we'll do a def set user, user.find params ID. That'll be our @user. We can now use that in all of our different methods. Now, as you'll recall, we had 5 of them. So real quick, we'll just create those. So we had a follow method, a unfollow method. We had a accept, a decline, def decline, and we had a def cancel. So if we want to follow a user, what we do is we say current user dot send follow request to @user. At that point, you have now created your follow request. After you've done that, because we're using like requests here, we want to be able to redirect somewhere maybe, in which case we'll just say redirect to the profile path for that user. If we want to do a unfollow, it's similar. We just say current user dot unfollow the @user and then redirect to the profile path. Now, the unfollow is something we have to build ourselves inside of our current user model. We might not have to, but it's a new gem and it's late. This is the only way I could figure out how to make this work. So we will do a custom unfollow method in our model where it takes in a user. And then all we have to do is grab the followable relationships. Then we say dot where the followable ID is the user.id. And then we call dot destroy all on this to destroy all of the follower relationships with this user, which will then destroy the followable relationships. Now, the key with this is, and this is where it's a little bit confusing, you do have the option to make this not a follow request, but like a friend request where you're unfriending them, which means you both no longer follow each other. In this case, you're only like unfollowing them. You are not making them unfollow you. If you want to make this like a friend request where you make them unfollow you, you can just create a method, is how I did it, just because I thought it was simple. So you make a method that says make it a unfriend request, and then you come down here to the private area and you just say def make it a unfriend request. I just named it this so it's really clear what we're doing. And then in here, all we do is we say @user.unfollow the current user. And we want to do this if the @user dot, and I think the method is called mutual following with the current user. So this is just making sure that you guys share a unfollow relationship, and then it'll just unfollow the other user. There's probably a cleaner way to do this, but again, it's late. I'm lazy. You don't come here for the most optimum solutions anyways. So that takes care of the ability to unfollow each other. And then, of course, for our follow request, we don't need to deal with that. Now, in theory, I guess you could make it so that if one person sends a follow request, they both have a follow request. But then you could accept your own follow request, or you could accept their follow request that you've created, which would allow you to like force them to be friends with you, which might be a interesting relationship, but not necessarily an ideal one for something like this. So that takes care of the ability to follow and unfollow someone by clicking a button. But now, how do we deal with these follow requests, right? Like if you send me a friend request, how do I accept it? Well, if you want to accept the friend request, all you have to do is say current user dot accept follow request of the @user. So if you click the button that says accept the friend request, you're then accepting the friend request for that user. And if you'll recall on our homepage, oh, I guess I don't have it open anymore, but on our homepage, we had a, oh, it's right here. This works. We have the users that are requesting to follow you with a accept and decline button. So if you click the accept button, you're then saying, all right, I want this user to follow me. That's fine. Or I want to be friends with this user, in which case I also need to have a relationship built with them. In that case, what you want to do is maybe you don't just want to do a follow request and let them follow you. Maybe you also want to be friends with them, which means you're going to automatically follow them. In which case we'll make a method, call it, make it a friend request. And then we'll create that method down here. And to make it a friend request, you already guessed it, we're just going to repeat the logic. We're going to do whatever we did for the follow, which is right here. So send follow request to the @user. And then we're going to do whatever we did for the accept, but it's going to be from the perspective of the @user instead. So we'll grab this right here, we'll paste it down here, and we're going to replace the current user with the @user, and we're going to replace the @user with the current user. And now you can see what's happening. When you click the button, it is then making you send a follow request to them, and then you're making them accept the follow request. Because you've accepted their follow request, if you want to make it reciprocal, you're just handling that logic this way so that you have the same relationships being built instead of just like trying to insert arbitrary data into the database. I felt like this might be a bit more of an out-of-the-box solution. But of course, you can always just create the followable and followable relationships yourself. That's a bit of a tongue twister. Okay, so that is how you accept one of these. Now, to decline a request, it's pretty simple. It's just another method, which is going to be decline follow request of @user. And then, of course, for this one, we want to make sure that we are redirecting to wherever we want to go. So in the case of a decline, we'll redirect to the root path. In the case of an accept, we'll also redirect to the root path, which means the only thing we have to do now is cancel a pending follow request, in which case we just say remove the follow request for the current user for the @user. So if you've made a follow request to @user, let's just go ahead and remove that follow request. And once that's done, we'll go back to the root path. Now that takes care of a lot of the logic here. We just have to deal with the home page now, I believe, but our show page should be functional. So I'm going to come into the show page here, and we're going to see what it's complaining about. So current user dot following question mark seems to be an issue. And the reason for that is I think we need to make sure that we are authenticated. So we're going to say before action authenticate underscore user. I think it's an exclamation mark, right? Get the Devise stuff working. So that'll take us to the sign-in page. And as you'll recall, on the sign-in page, we already seeded our database with 2 users. So I'll say dean@example.com with a password. And then let's go ahead and let's open up our incognito tab here. I'm going to go ahead and refresh it. So you'll see here, we're going to log into john@doe.com, the password. I'm going to go ahead and click follow on John Doe. I'm going to scroll up a bit, and we're going to see that there was a insert into the followability relationships. And if we come over to the home page, we're not seeing it on John Doe's page. And if we go over to /profile/1, you'll see we can create a follow request to this user. But of course, if we do that, we're not actually going to be able to accept it because we don't have that accept functionality on the home page. Now, one thing you could do is you could change this from a follow button to, if you have a follow request, then just accept it here. But I'm going to do it on the home page. So to do it on the home page, it's actually not that bad. We're going to create 2 sections. The first one's going to be a section for if we have any follow requests. And then the other one's going to be all of the users that follow us. So we'll start with the follow request section. To do that, we just need to do a quick little loop. And we're going to loop through all of our follow requests. So to do this, we'll just say current user dot follow request dot each do request. Then we'll have an end block right here. And then in here, we'll just say for each of these requests, grab the request dot followerable dot email. Again, whenever you have these like abstract relationships, the verbiage can be a little bit weird. But in this case, the followerable is the person who is requesting to be a follower, which is how I remember this. And then if you want to accept or decline this, you're just going to have a button to accept or decline. And it's going to take you to the accept path where you pass in the request.followerable, which is like the user that has requested to follow you. Once you go to the accept path, then you have the user that requested to follow you. So you're saying accept follow request of the user that requested to follow you. If you want to make it a friend request, then you come down here and you say, all right, I've accepted your friend request. Now I'm going to send you one, and then you're going to accept it because I'm forcing you to, as most good friendships tend to be. And then for declining, it's going to be similar, except we're going to have a button to decline with the decline path instead, and that'll take you to the decline action where we just decline the follow request and redirect to the root path. The other section here is going to be for our followers. So if we have these existing relationships, either we're following someone or we're either following someone or we're like mutual friends with them. In that case, we'll just say current user.followers.each. And then in here for each of the followers, we'll just do a link to that follower's email. We'll take them to the profile path where we pass in the user and we say they're following you. That just lets you go to their profile if you want to go see what your friends are up to. The other thing that you can do is you can have a button to unfollow them, which will just be the unfollow path where you pass in this user. And in this scenario where we have these friend requests in this friend request system, we are now pretty much good to go. So we can come in here, we can refresh on the homepage. We can come to the homepage for Dean. You can see there's nothing here, but on John Doe's homepage, you can see that we can either accept or decline the friend request from Dean. So let's go ahead and let's accept Dean's friend request, and you can see that Dean is now following you, and you are now following Dean. So if we go to /profiles/1, in this case, you can see that even without sending a friend request, I am now friended to Dean. If I want to unfollow him, I just click unfollow. I go back to the home page and that relationship's gone. If I refresh on Dean's page, you can now see that he needs to send another follow request. I can click follow, I can click cancel, and if I go back to that page, it is now back to just being a follow button. And the last scenario is I can decline it from the home page, and you can see here that it gets reset to a follow action after that's done. So yeah, this is like, I know it's like a 20-minute video and it was a lot of copy pasting, but this is a really cool feature. I really like this gem because this is one of those things that's always kind of convoluted to set up yourself. And in this case, like you saw, it is a little bit weird with how I have my logic constructed. You could probably clean it up a bit, but when you look at what the actual logic is in the controller, it's pretty lean. In most cases, it is a single line to create the relationship or the request, and it becomes like an extra 2 lines if you want to make it a mutual thing, which I feel like it's fair to have 3 lines of code to have a friend request system working. So that's pretty cool. Overall, really big fan of this gem. Highly recommend checking it out. If you're creating followers or friends or any sort of like request system. And even if you're not, maybe you just want to have it so that you can like one-click follow someone. You just do something like this where you also accept the request from the other person's perspective whenever you make the request. So in your follow action, you might send the follow request to the @user, and then you might say something like, let's make the @user accept that request. So we just say current user sends the follow request to @user, and then @user.accept follow request of current user. And now you have the ability to follow someone with one click if that's what you desire. But that is going to do it for this video. Hopefully this was helpful. I'll have a link to this gem in the video description. I would highly recommend checking it out, going and starring it. It is a brand new gem, but as you can see, it already has all of the polish you would expect. So hopefully this was helpful, and hopefully I will see you in the next video.